when you're looking for behind-the-scenes action, who else than the man who just got off a red-eye flight yesterday, back on our nation's land? It's Ian Mendes from the Andlauer here with us. Ian, how are you doing today, sir?
Guys, I got 4 words for you. The streets don't miss.
Yes. Don't miss. Coming in hot. Ian, how did you find out about it without giving us your sources? But what was your initial, how did Ian Mendes wake up this morning and find out that the Senators were sold?
Well, I woke up at about 4:45 this morning because of the time difference. I've been in Italy the last 12 days.
Nice.
So I was up super early, like before 5 o'clock. Went to the gym at about, and I tried to go back to, anyway, went to gym at 9 o'clock, and I saw the Sportico tweet. That the first one, and you know what? I always knew that Sportico was going to be the outlet that broke this, only because if you go back and look at the way that this story has evolved, Sportico has been the first to report everything, right? Like everything, in terms of the procedure of the process when they first put it for sale, when, all of these things. And there's been some other terrific reporting, don't get me wrong, but they were, for whatever reason, they were always going to be the one I felt like that was going to have it. So they had it. And then I was literally on the exercise bike at Movati, where I usually, by the way, work out next to Mark Mathot, but Meth wasn't there today. But I was on the bike all morning, just trying to text people, try to get some confirmation. And that's kind of how it, between 9 and 9:30, that's what I was doing this morning.
So you just missed him because at 10:17,
I was going to say,
I said, I'm at the gym. He can't come on. So,
okay. So yeah, usually Meth will be there. I get there usually around 8:30, 9 o'clock most mornings. And Meth is usually there shortly after 9. And, but yeah, and I like to say I work out with him, but I mean,
is it motivating though? Is he still doing the NHL workouts? I feel like he's a hardo at the gym.
Oh yeah, totally. He's a complete, he looks like to me like he could play still in the NHL. Right?
Have you seen him on the outdoor rink? He can play.
Yeah. No, he's
just those knees. Just a little worried about those knees.
Pour you a glass?
What's happening here? Wait, first of all, why are you guys in? How come Martian and I are the only guys in hats and t-shirts, and you guys are pouring champagne in his suit?
This is the Locked On Senators business podcast.
Okay,
he's even wearing his business watch.
I'm wearing my business watch.
That means something's going down.
Yeah,
we are to be taken very seriously.
Ian, when's the next move going to be made? We're speculating here that because the Melnick sisters are keeping 10%, that maybe there's going to be a workaround that if Andlauer wants a change made, he doesn't have to wait until he officially has the keys.
So this is going to be a really interesting, and only because we're getting close to the start of a new NHL calendar, right? Which is June 28th is the draft, July 1st. To me, you don't pay $950 million for an entity and not have control of it at the most critical juncture of the season, right? Would you guys agree with me on that?
Yes,
so
definitely.
I don't see a scenario in which Michael Andlauer isn't able to put his imprint on this team at the most critical juncture of the. Now, whether or not that happens officially, unofficially, I just don't see how you could pay $950 million. Oh, by the way, you have to wait 10 weeks to really. And meanwhile, all of these things go by: free agency, the draft, opportunity to move players, whether hockey operations, all that stuff you want to do. So, as I was looking at it too. I think when the Pittsburgh Penguins were, and I think it was Pittsburgh, the process to approve the Penguins was 2 weeks.
Yeah, it didn't seem very long.
No, I think it was November 29th or something. They announced they've been sold in principle to Fenway Sports, but within 2 weeks, the keys were given. And what's interesting is when the Penguins were sold in 2021, first of all, that came out of nowhere, right? I didn't even know they were on the market. But in the initial release, the Penguins announced that they were keeping, certain people in their positions. And we haven't seen that yet out of this. But it's early, right? It's still early, but I'll go back to, I just don't see how you pay close to $1 billion US and not have control over the team at arguably the most critical juncture of the summer.
And the thing would be, and we kind of discussed this, is who would block them from doing things, because the Melnick sisters are still 10% stakeholders. And at this point, I don't think Anna and Olivia are concerned about who's going to be the newest fourth line winger. Like, you know what I mean? So I feel like at this point, it's like, all right, we have a deal in place. We believe you are the owners of the team and you have the best interest of this team. If there are moves you'd like to do, why not do them? Now, would Michael Andlauer's involvement with the Montreal Canadiens, would that be something the NHL would say, hey, the draft is here, maybe as an owner, you have information and there's a conflict of interest there. Would that connection hinder them doing something right away?
Yeah, and I see that comment coming up in the comment section here, right? Of, hey, there's a conflict of interest, and yeah, absolutely, you can't look at the Brad Treliving situation, for example, where Brad Treliving cannot run the draft for the Maple Leafs because he's got proprietary information on Calgary, right? I don't think if you own a 10% stake in the Montreal Canadiens, though, that you would necessarily have proprietary information on. I don't think so. I could be wrong, but I doubt it.
Yep.
So there might have to be some checks and balances. And maybe if you are the Montreal Canadiens, maybe you do say, hey, I'm a little uneasy about somebody who's a part owner of us going to – but I'm sure, again, there's got to be some workaround solutions for that. I just, I think it's a valid point. It's absolutely a valid point. But I just don't see it being enough of a hindrance to stop him from – pursuing trades or doing the things that he'd probably like to do.
Yeah, I think if it's 2018 and the Habs are drafting third, the Sens are drafting fourth, or maybe even if it's flipped even more so, maybe you're like, oh, I don't want him at the draft table. He knows what we're going to do. I just don't see it as that much of a competitive difference, especially where the teams are at. Like, they're in two different lanes right now, with the Habs looking at futures and the Senators trying to figure out how to get a winning product on right now. I'm really intrigued what the next move is. Ian, can I interest you in a tinfoil hat with Patrick Waugh's press conference stepping down today? How about the timing of that?
Yeah, and I know, look, there was a lot of rumors around, and I was away for the Memorial Cup, but I was, kind of paying attention. I saw Darren Dreger and Dreg saying that, his belief was at least one of the ownership groups had toyed with the idea of thinking about Patrick Waugh. And yeah, obviously, when you see the timing of it, it's interesting, isn't it? Like, he steps down. But I think the feeling was, even when he won that Memorial Cup, that he was probably done coaching at that level anyway, right? Like, wasn't that the feeling that...
I think he had made that clear. I think he announced it. Did he not, Ross? We talked about that.
Yeah, he announced it, but the timing that he was able to be asked about Michael Andlauer at his conclusion press conference, like, it's just hilarious how it worked out to be on this day of all the 218 days this team's been for sale.
Totally. But I mean, he did say that he hasn't had any conversations, right? Like, that was basically his like, I haven't had.
He says, I know him well. I'm not sure if he'll call me, but he's a really nice guy. That was the official quote.
Yeah. And, it's, I don't think you have to have much of a tinfoil hat for this one, right? Like it's easy to make the connection and connect the dots here of how this might work. So look, this is going to be, I think this is going to be a fascinating time for Ottawa fans. But finally, like, I think you get the ownership group that this city deserves, right? Or that this market and this fan base has deserved, which is somebody who I think from the outside looking in seems like somebody who's really passionate on the hockey side. Like, here's one thing, and Martian, you would know because you're super connected to this, and both of you guys all three of you have been really connected to this process. And I think the one thing you would probably agree with me on this, out of the remaining groups, Michael Andlauer always seemed like the one who was least looking at this as a real estate play, right? Like, didn't you feel like this is the one guy who was like, I legit want to win a Stanley Cup and I want to have my fingerprints on a Stanley Cup and I could put a team together. Whereas I think some of the other groups maybe were like, hey, let's look at this from a real estate angle. And this isn't his area of expertise, right? Which is where I think he'll really lean heavily on Claridge Homes in this market to navigate some of this real estate stuff. But I almost think that Michael Andlauer looks at this and says, let me run the hockey team and let Claridge or somebody else, you can let, Marco, obviously I'll consult on this, but this, he's here for the hockey. And I'm excited today that the owner of the team is super invested in the team. And I love, you know what I love in his statement he put out today. There was one word that Mike Andlauer, it wasn't in bold. I think it was in italics. Community.
Yeah.
Like in his statement, I think the word community was italicized. That's the one thing that we were missing in the last 5 or 6 years, that feeling of attachment to the community, right? This previous regime, it broke a lot of ties with businesses, with sponsors, with fans, with their own charitable arm of the organization.
Yeah, even internally, right? All the staff, like what kind of relationship did they have with ownership? This is what I've heard about Michael Andlauer, is that he's such a personable, real, down-to-earth guy for somebody who is as wealthy as he is. Yeah, he's going to walk in there and he's going to form relationships immediately with the staff and the people who work there, even the players, right? And they're going to want to buy into the culture that he's going to create and the community internally for them. And then it's just going to expand beyond that to the fans and to us and to you, Ian, right? The media. It's going to be really fun to see how it goes down. But I'm thinking very positively right now about how he's going to go about things. I think he's definitely, like you said, he's the one who's going to be the most interested in bringing a winning hockey team to the city, which for me as a fan is the first and foremost priority. I know that we definitely need and want a downtown arena, but if they succeed on the ice, all that stuff's going to come with it, right? It's going to be a bit of a domino effect, I feel like, with that.
They could play in Barhaven if they win, for all I care.
Honestly, me too, Ross. Like, I'll, as a fan, I just want to see the Sens win.
Cheap shot at Ian. You're in Barhaven, aren't you?
Oh my God! You're telling me I could walk down Strandherd and or maybe up Woodruff and watch a Sens game? I'm in. But you guys are right. Like, if you go back to when this team was really humming in the early 2000s, there weren't that. Look, we all complained about the arena, but it wasn't like the worst thing. It wasn't the worst thing in the world. Like, winning,
we still filled it.
Yes, winning cures everything. And I'll say this: as much as we think that a new arena is coming, at the earliest, I think an arena that we will, like the four of us could be sitting in a new arena and watching a game. The earliest I could see it would be like the fall of 2027.
Yeah.
And that's early.
Yeah.
Like that's okay. So here's what I think. I think if this team wins the Stanley Cup, it's going to be in Canada. That truly, I think they're entering their 4 or 5 year window of contention now. Like now, it starts now. And I think that the 4 or 5 years that we have here, I think this is your chance to win the cup. Is it not? Yeah. Like I kind of feel like you can win a Stanley Cup in Canada and no one's going to care. No one's going to care. I wish we won this at LeBreton. Who cares? Like you said, play in Barhaven if you win a cup. Nobody cares.
Yeah, and I honestly think that would almost be poetic, Ian, because
the last year in the building.
The last year in the building, the last game. Imagine they win it at home, the last game, and then some. Like, I would love for the Stanley Cup to be a part of like the construction of the new building somehow. Like, that would just be incredible. And you know what? Like you said it. Like, obviously, the building being Canada, not ideal, but I personally have a lot of fond memories there. It feels like it matched with the Ottawa Senators. Like, everyone was like, oh, this team doesn't have a downtown arena. The traffic's horrible. But Sens fans didn't care. Sure, you go to the washroom and there's practically ice pouring out of the taps and it's freezing cold.
There until you get the freezing cold water. That's honestly like the shock that you're home.
Yeah, you don't know what to do after the game, but it was still a spot where all these great moments and memories happen that the CTC will always hold a fond spot in my heart, even if it wasn't exactly the best arena for an NHL hockey
inside
team.
Like, I wish they could just pick the thing up, brush it up a little bit, modernize it, but like, there's not a bad seat in the house. The sight lines are unbelievable. Was it Bill Burr, who's been all over the place? He went to a game and he's just like in awe of how great, once you walk into the arena, it is. Like, and he's seen his fair share around the world. So I mean, obviously I grew up going to games there. I still remember Jeff Friesen breaking my heart there in 2003. And now you're at a stage where it's like, yeah, we need a downtown rink, but like, let's make the most out of the one we have for now. And that's just exciting times right now. It really does. Ian, does it feel to you right now like it's a new era of Sens hockey, just with the snap of a button here with the team putting out the tweet?
Yeah, it does, right? Like, and I think this is going to be for all of you who suffered through 2018, 19, 20, all of that stuff, all of those really bad years, and I don't blame anybody who jumped off the bandwagon or felt like they didn't want. I'll never.
The wagon was on fire for years,
the whole thing.
and the wheels were falling off.
I'm not going to sit here and say you weren't a real fan for sticking with it. But here's what I will say. I have nothing but respect for those who did. For those of you who stuck around for the 2017, 18, 19, 20, all of that stuff, for you to be able to experience it. What is this? The TMZ is putting out.
TMZ is reporting. I had to pull it up.
Oh.
TMZ's getting on it. This is the last that we'll probably see of this one. Put away the celebratory joint. Snoop Dogg will not be the next owner of the Senators. I got to give them credit for that headline. That's all time.
That's you know what? Out of all of this entire process, I'm going to remember that, having the ability, I had a chance to interview Snoop.
Yeah, that's awesome.
You know what? Think about
That's
that.
pretty cool.
Yeah, it's pretty unbelievable. So this whole thing has been surreal. But look, out of it, at the end of the day, too, when you think about this, so many of these bids, whether it was the Kimmels had the weekend, obviously Ryan Reynolds was connected to this, and Snoop. At the end, there isn't a celebrity attachment to this, and yet I don't get the sense that the fans are feeling any sense of disappointment. In fact, if anything, I would say that the Andlauer bid, in some ways, it's the perfect encapsulation of Ottawa, isn't it? We don't need a celebrity. We don't
Yes.
Would it have been nice? Yeah, I'm not going to lie. Unbelievable for growing the brand. But really, at the end of the day, that's not. We needed three things in Ottawa. We needed a capable, competent, and committed owner. That's it. The three C's. That's it.
It's crazy too that throughout this whole process, Andlauer was the one who was the quietest throughout all this when there was so much PR noise surrounding almost all of the other groups, right? With Remington and Reynolds, the Weekend and Kimmels, plus Salter when he came on. They all made little splashes all around. Nico Sparks with all the people that he added to his group, all the big names, right? And Andlauer was the only one who was strong and silent and confident throughout the entire thing, which is kind of interesting, right? And I think that points kind of back to his relationship with the NHL. Is he knows what they like and what they don't like. And for him to just stay silent throughout this whole thing and not get caught up in the pizzazz of trying to add a celebrity himself, it was a pretty good way to do it, obviously, because in the end he ended up winning the bid.
Yeah, no, it's just, you know what, it feels like a great. Now I understand why you guys were in suits, because this is.
Now you get it, Ian. You get it. Okay, good.
I didn't get the memo, Ian, but it's okay.
Yeah, you and I didn't get the memo. But
I'm cutting off circulation in my neck. It's top button season.
Old Ross let all guests
you
know.
gotta go Brian Burke with that, Ross. You just go tie around the neck.
What about the timing? This is my one day off from my other job this week. It's just perfectly timed. I appreciate that from the team. And how about them waiting until you got back from Italy?
Yeah,
when you were on that plane, Ian, on the way to Italy, you did not think this was going to last this long, did you?
Guys, and I was texting with you guys, and I was like, well, this thing is going to go.
Oh, don't give away our sources, Ian.
No, but I was saying to you guys, come on, what are the odds? I was leaving on June 1st. I was like, this thing is going to sell the day I leave or the day after I leave. Yeah. And my wife allowed me, and I will say allowed me, because I had to ask. Because you know what? We've planned this trip for a long time.
Fair.
And she, one day somebody should do a story about how difficult it is to be married to a reporter. It's awful. Honestly, it's awful, because news breaks and plans get canceled and weekends, and people don't understand how important it is to have a really good partner or a spouse in this industry. And so when you have to go to your partner and say, what if I brought my laptop to Italy? And and she was understanding of it, but I never really, I was checking my phone and whatever. I never had to break it out, but I was convinced, I can't believe this, that literally the day I get back or the day after I get back, this thing is sold. Perfect timing.
As Ali says, shout out Mrs. Mendes.
Shout out Mrs. Mendes.
For sure.
Shout out you for bringing your laptop, but not, just doing it to do it. You were contrite that only if a sale happens is when I'll pull it out.
Yes, that was the deal that we had. And even then, I'll be real honest with you too. I also had 4 pre-written, just quick
I was going
analysis.
to ask you if you did
Yes.
that. That's
Okay.
so funny.
4 stories written on Apostolopoulos winning the bid, Kimmel's winning the bid, Andlauer, and Spark, all 4 of them. And so the story, again, I'll pull back the curtain happily. The story that is up on The Athletic today, I had about 70% of that is written from about 2 weeks ago.
Right.
And then I just went back in, I altered some stuff today to kind of update it with a little bit of new information. But I had to have 4 things ready to go because I didn't know where this was going. I had no idea where this was going.
Oh my God. I love that behind the curtain. So in your estimation, at what point did it become the front runner that it was going to be Andlauer's group? Or did you not really have, not have any chances?
No, I mean, I should have listened to Martian when he said it.
He took the heat for it too. I like it.
But honestly, I think this whole process was at some point, I really want to do a deep dive on this and try and get some people to open up about why was there was a ton of stuff flying around in the last 3 weeks, 4 weeks. Like some of it was real.
Write a book about this one day.
Yeah, 100%. Like, or at the very least, like a really good, thorough, long form piece on like how did this all come about? Like, why did Apostolopoulos and Remington walk away? Like, who the heck is Nico Sparks? How did he get to the point where he was one of the last 3 standing? The Kimmels, like I tweeted a couple weeks ago, everybody told me, hey, listen, trust me, I think the Kimmels are out. And I checked in with people close to the Kimmels and they're like, we're in it. And then I had like 3 or 4 people tell me, no, I think the Kimmels are out. And I just didn't know what to believe at any point, right? Like, it was ridiculous.
Maybe they were out without them knowing they were out. Who knows how that goes, right?
100%. I don't know what was happening, but these are credible, legitimate people that were speaking. And so anyway, wild process. I think there's going to be some frustration and anger from some of the, certainly I think from Apostolopoulos, there's probably some. I think certainly from the Remingtons, there's probably some. And I would imagine from the other 2 that were kind of close to this in Kimmels and Nico Sparks, there's probably some degree of frustration.
Definitely.
That it dragged out this long.
I mean, nobody likes losing.
No, not when something goes for as long as like 250. Was it 218 days?
I think it was 217, but
whatever it is. Like people are like, if you think you're frustrated as an Ottawa fan for going through this, imagine that you were putting time, money, resources, effort, all of that into this, and now you come up short, right? You're going to be frustrated and angry. So this is going to be an interesting to see this process sort of decompress and see if. But the problem is a lot of this is wrapped up in NDAs, so I don't know that we'll get necessarily. But at the very least, like the one guy that I think is fascinating to me that I haven't had a chance to do anything kind of like I'd like to do something on there like about Nico Sparks. Like who how did he put this together? Like how did he get this close? Was it all a mirage? Was it not? I don't know. I really don't know.
It's wild that our lasting memory of Nico Sparks, and this might have actually been after you went away. Ian, do you know where I'm going with this?
No.
Okay, this is going to be wrapped up in Sens lore forever. So he had that moment where he fired back, and I understand the frustration at that point, where he fired back at a fan, and I didn't think he said anything offside, but just the fact that he was willing to shoot on Twitter, but then kind of retracted it. Then his only tweet since then, Ian, I'm going to read it actually word for word because I don't want to misname it. Oh, wow, I have his profile open right here. Where are we going from here? Sorry, he had one other one about AI, but before that, no, it is the most recent one. Does anyone have any recommendations on the best app to learn a new language?
Yeah.
And then he puts out a thing, and everyone in the comments are, let me guess, French. And he replied to each one saying, yes, I want to learn French.
He should have at least said oui.
Well, yeah.
Yes.
Why do you think he wants to learn French, huh?
I wonder how it's going. If he's made any progress with his learning.
Hasn't tweeted out since. So, anyways, very, very like you said, Ian. That's the most fascinating part in all this because he's the only person in Dragon's Den history to sell a product he didn't own to the Dragons, and then he's got all these like very high profile people on board. Like you said during your reporting throughout it, like there had to be something to get Goldman Sachs to represent them to get these reputable people, reputable companies to join this bid. So
and to put their neck out like that, yeah.
There is a lot to dig up on this group. I think you could have a field day. Maybe you just need a few guinea pigs to help you do the digging.
Oh, little Sanderson Pinto guinea pigs?
I don't know. Well, you'd only have one in that case. Go read Ian Mendes on The Athletic for more.
I'll be interested to see how quickly
that, by the way, didn't we? Pills, we haven't talked to Ian since we called that. He had this big story coming.
True. That was your first guess.
I was like, it can't be the guinea pigs. And he had straight face throughout. I was going to clip it, and I was like, he doesn't even react.
Yeah.
Pro's pro. Martian, you got something?
Well, I was just going to say, like, on the topic of Nico Sparks and kind of who he is and all that things, you know, there's a lot of photos on his own website right now of him basically representing the Senators or in front of Senators' billboard. I'll be interested to see how quickly that stuff changes. You know, with this not being his bid, that's going to go through. Like his identity right now is potential owner of the Ottawa Senators, more or less, right? Like that's what he's putting himself out there as. So
his Twitter avatar, his Instagram avatar, his LinkedIn avatar, the About Us on the Sparks Finance group is in front of a huge Sens mural. Like, I don't know. He's clearly been successful in AI development and in producing. It's not like he's going to go back and look for a resume to write. Like he's clearly got a pretty good stance and he's done very successful. Do you think not only the Sparks group, which we're talking about right now, but also the Kimmel group, would you be surprised at all if the next NHL franchise that comes up, that both of them are involved trying to buy them?
Well, you would think, right? Like now, especially if you've gone through some degree of a vetting process, and the league is comfortable with your financing, and maybe and these were thorough. These are like criminal background checks. These are financial deep dives. So if the league is comfortable with you, you would have to think on some level, not that you're fully cleared to purchase Arizona or an expansion team, but you'd have to think, okay, like you're in the mix here. And I know that there's the group out of Salt Lake City that is certainly interested in buying the team. There's some other groups, but absolutely, you would think if you were willing to pay $950 for the Ottawa Senators, wouldn't you theoretically pay $950 for any team in theory? So yeah, I would have to think that.
Yeah, I think they would honestly, like, if it wasn't for the, you know, already loving the idea of Reynolds or Andlauer and just the different pieces that they brought to the table, I think we would have all been far more on board with those groups to begin with. Because we had our favorites, they weren't necessarily our first choice sort of thing. But I think for any other city, for a potential NHL team to have groups of, you know, with this character and what they're trying to do and bringing that out, I think that they would be an excellent ownership group for any other city. I just think that here in Ottawa, they weren't as, you know, I don't want to say not as accepted right away or not as, you know, I think it's just because we had other groups that we liked better, that the fans, or some fans at least, you know, already had their kind of choice made up. At least, you know, in our case, I think we were already looking at, like, with Remington and Reynolds, we really wanted that to happen. And then as soon as it didn't, we were like, okay, well, let's go for the stable local kind of group.
Yeah, and speaking of that local angle, Ian, I want to get your take on that aspect of it. I want to, well, as I'm finding out who to give credit for this reporting, what's your favorite thing about Farm Boy?
Oh my God, probably the kale amole dip. It's the half kale kind of.
I haven't had that.
Yeah, so it's like guacamole but made kind of with kale, and anyway, it's very good. That would be on my list of best Farm Boy things. And the Farm Boy burgers are elite.
You took it out of my mouth. Yeah, that's where I was.
You go to the butcher at Farm Boy, and
yeah, the ones they pre-make with the they put the cheddar cheese in it or a little bit of
in it. So as you grill it, it's almost like melting.
The poutine burger.
Oh yeah, I don't know if I've ever done that one, but it's similar. I think it has like cheese chunks in the patty itself.
I got a salad bar card that I always get to my whatever it is, 10 points. I redeem it. Yeah, I'm a big Farm Boy guy.
I don't know why. Maybe this is just like a family thing my parents always had in the house, but their fresh salsa is ridiculously tasty.
It's so good. It's Lone Star-esque.
Yep.
So how, I mean, you got to think there's going to be a really great food Farm Boy stand eventually in the CTC.
But there already is, isn't there? Isn't there the Farm Boy Fresh section?
Oh yeah, there is, but it's
it's like here's some hummus.
Yeah, it's not like they're not cooking in there really. I don't think.
No, we need a full out. I want the full Farm Boy, like the hot lunch options that you have. I want that at the CTC. I want buttered chicken in the second intermission. That's what I want.
Is it too soon to reach out for a sponsorship offer to Farm Boy today? Maybe I'll wait a week or two.
No, see, as long as it doesn't affect your Shawarma Palace deal.
No, it does. Shawarma Palace is always the number.
Oh, Shawarma Palace they're the goats.
You know what? We're sending Ian a $50 Shawarma Palace gift. Yeah, this right here. Ian bringing the heat right now.
Yeah.
And you know what? We were saying we got to grab a beer when we're in Ottawa first week of July.
Yes.
You're like, the location might have to be a Shawarma Palace. I mean, come on.
There's no might, and then we're taking a picture.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. No, that's – hey, do you real quick aside, I do have some more questions for you on ownership, but do you head out to Dev Camp at all?
So when is it the first week of July? Is it right after?
It's usually right after the draft. The draft randomly is on a Wednesday. That leads into Canada Day. So I don't know if they're going to start Dev Camp on the 1st. I know they've done Canada Day things before, but usually it's in the middle of camp, if not later. There's a Red Blacks game that week. We know the prospects usually take in a Red Blacks game if that's the case, but we were told to reach out to them around June 20th, and they'll have their full schedule ready by then.
Oh, there you
go. Our
go.
plan is to go set up in a back room at the CTC and just do car wash with 10 of the guys.
That would be, you know what, that would be great, because I think what fans would appreciate is just 20-minute interviews with prospects that wouldn't necessarily maybe have that platform anywhere else, right?
They're such good guys. Like the Senators say that they've been drafting with the thought that you need to be a good person first, and
it's clear.
Every single person we've had on Pills, like, there's not a bad guy. The only guy that was shy was Stephen Halliday, and he literally apologized to us next time and gave us one of our best interviews. He was so open, so like forthcoming, and they're good dudes for sure that they've been able to get in the system. But I love this. Like, I love being able to look back at Dev Camp. Like, what sticks in my mind is the skating drill in 2010, and people are like, "Wow, hardo here," but I'm going somewhere with this. The skating drill in 2010. It's like C cut with one leg up, C cut with one leg up. Nobody fell except for one guy. Mark Stone fell about 6 times. He could not skate, and now he's about to lift the Stanley Cup first as a champion. So, just going from seeing a 6th-round pick that literally was Bambi on skates to what he's become now, it's just so cool. So it's fun to see them at the very beginning. So do you ever get out and see them? Plex?
So, I've gone last few years. I mean, in COVID, they kind of stopped them, right? They weren't really doing them, but usually I try to get out and do some interviews with the guys. So I mean, the plan for me right now is to go to Nashville for the draft.
Nice.
Scott Wheeler, no,
it's not a bad town. It's not a bad town to go.
It's not a bad town.
Yeah, mock draft coming up next week. Scott Wheeler gave us over an hour of his time. We did picks 1 through 8 with him. He said you guys almost do like the athletic NHL like conference and all meet up.
Exactly. So we'll do that in Nashville, and then I should come back that weekend. Whatever. So if there's Dev Camp, I'll be there for sure.
Hell yeah. So what's the plan for the summer? Give us a scoop on a feature you got coming.
Wow. It's the big feature that I've got to do is and it's sitting there. I've got so I spent about 7 hours with Timmy Stützle in his hometown.
Awesome.
A couple of weeks ago, and went for lunch with him and his mom. Just toured around everywhere. He took me kind of to the arena where he learned how to skate, and his elementary school and all that. So I have, I don't know, a couple hours of on the record recording I got to go through with Tim and put that together. And I think it's going to be great. Just a lot about his backstory, kind of where he came. But what I really was more interested in too is, and I told him, I was like, I think I want to know, you need to tell me how $65 million is not going to change you. You know, like how's this not going to change you? So that he gave me some terrific answers and insight and some great quotes. I think Ottawa fans are really going to appreciate about salary for players and trying to build the team and that type of thing. So I'm really excited to put that together. At some point, I'll have to wait till this 2-week window ends here. with the ownership stuff. But yeah, that's something that I'm putting forward in July.
Quick follow on that, Marshall. I want to get to you, but like, what's the one takeaway while you were leaving Viersen, I believe the name of the town is? What was your one takeaway that you left with?
Like, I'm trying to think. Like, it's just, it's amazing because you drive up. I took a cab to I was staying in Dusseldorf, which is like 25 minutes away from the little town where Timmy grew up, and I took a cab there, and like you're driving, and like 5 minutes before you hit his town, there's sheep grazing. There's this like, and in my mind, I'm thinking, like, this is the place that created arguably the most talented player to ever put on a Sens jersey. Like, I think when it's all said and done, I think he's going to be the guy, if he stays in Ottawa for his career, that his statistical numbers will eclipse anybody's. And right now, like, to me right now, Erik Karlsson's the most talented player to ever play for Ottawa.
I bet you Alfie would say that too.
But I think this guy's got a chance to go 400 plus goals, 1,000 plus points, all of that. Like, he's that good. And so it really struck me, like, coming to this place, like, how did this place create maybe the greatest player in Ottawa history? It's not your typical backstory. So anyway, it was great and I did the obligatory visit of the childhood bedroom, which can be borderline creepy, right? Like, now I've done it with Shane Pinto, and so I got to be careful here. Like, I don't want to get the reputation of being the guy that.
Can I see your bedroom?
Exactly. But it was great. It was so cool. He keeps all the jerseys that he ever wore, like right from the time he was 6, 7 years old. All of them are there. His little his trophies are like he just randomly on his dresser has the what year was it now that he won the top forward at the World Juniors? 2020.
That was the introduction to Sens fans. That was his first time stepping on the ice after being drafted, because the draft got pushed to October, and it was that December.
Yeah. So ridiculous. It's just like on his, like the way we would just have a whatever on your desk is like, you look at it like, whoa, wow, double IHF top forward, and he's got the 3 pucks. You remember the hat trick he scored in Winnipeg in his rookie year?
Yeah.
The 3 pucks are on his.
That's awesome.
On his desk. So anyway, I'm pretty excited to put that one together.
I'm looking forward to that feature. That's going to be a banger. I already know it. But how's he looking?
Can we get
how's he looking? I want to know. Is he look any bigger to you, or has he already been training? I don't know.
But that was just in May. And he was kind of just taking a little bit of downtime. Like I think the way he explained it to me is he tries to take 1 month off. Yeah. And then I think actually this week or last week, he started ramping up again. I think he basically just came back to his hometown for a little window. He wanted to spend some time with his parents, and that's what worked out for me to visit. And then he goes to Mannheim, and that's when he trains extensively the entire summer. So I think probably by late August, that's when you might see a little bit of a difference in him. But yeah, no, he looked pretty much the same, because I saw him at the end of April, and then I saw him like 3 weeks later or whatever it was. So pretty much the same.
Did he admit to you that he was battling through something this year? Because that guy had about a roll of athletic tape on his shoulder every single night.
Yeah, so the only thing he kind of hinted at was that like he was a little banged up to play in the Worlds, that he didn't necessarily, because I think he was intrigued by it, like because Moritz Seider ended up playing, and
they made the finals.
Yeah, and Germany made a little bit of a run. So I can guarantee you there was part of him that wanted to play, but I think he kind of felt like Ottawa coming into a year where he's starting an 8-year contract. This is his focus now. Like this is what he wants to make sure he's good at,
100%. By the way, we need a Timmy Superstar reference, because TSN's already got you one up right now with our boy Johnny Abbott.
Johnny Abbott, yeah, exactly.
What a beauty! But man, we're really looking forward to that story. And wait, that was the trip you stopped in Wrexham. Was this like, so you've been to Europe and back twice this summer?
Yes, exactly.
What a guy! Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Oh man.
International man of mystery, Ian Mendes.
And when you went to Wrexham, had he hadn't withdrawn yet?
No, he did.
You want to talk about the timing?
Yeah.
That was the day I landed in Wrexham. So
I mean, it was probably pretty cool just to go there regardless. Like, I'm sure that was
it was fascinating. Experience. It was a great story to write, and you could see the impact that he had. But yeah, no, it was literally the day that I pulled in.
Awesome.
I have two more questions, Ian. You've been super generous.
Yeah, yeah.
Everyone, go check out the article Ian wrote a month ago today on The Athletic about Michael Andlauer. No, updated as of today. And we appreciate you very much, Ian, and look forward to having that pint with you when we come to Ottawa this summer. Two final questions. And just an aside, too, I mentioned that I wanted to give credit and pull it up. And the Malhotra family, which owns Claridge Homes,
Yeah,
they have the largest local stake in the Senators. I feel like with the Remington Group, it was a Toronto real estate company that was going to build in Ottawa. So it's kind of cool that for the economy, it's an Ottawa builder that if there's a new rink, they're going to be in the mix.
yeah, and I know them a little bit. Like I know Sean Malhotra probably a little bit like better than Neil. But what I think is good about them from a real estate perspective with Claridge, they know the intricacies of trying to develop in this market. Whereas if you had a real estate firm from the GTA, they're not going to be used to the red tape that sometimes is associated with building in this town, with some of the issues that are just, they're very unique to Ottawa, right? Claridge knows. They know how to cut through red tape. They know how to do some things. And I would imagine that if there is a downtown arena, not only would they, help navigate some of that, more interesting to me as well, or equally interesting, is I think that they would be able to redevelop the land in Canada, monetize that land. Yeah. Don't forget, that's about 100 acres, 75 acres of land that people tell me is ballpark. It's $1 million an acre right now.
Yeah.
So that's, around $100 million worth of land that you can develop. And I think it is right now it's mixed like commercial and real estate, but they could absolutely put some homes up there. They could turn that into a shopping center, whatever it is. So I think that that's the perfect partner for them, real estate wise, is to have somebody in the city that absolutely knows how to navigate these things.
Yeah, they should be partnering with Larco Homes, but that's not from a biased perspective at all. How many cars do you think that they could park on the CTC grounds if they were to just expand that auto park in Canada?
Oh my gosh, that auto park! What's going to happen? If they move downtown, what's going to happen to that auto park? All the people that park there on game night, right?
Yeah.
No. So final question for me, and I don't know if the boys have one too, but Ian, what do you think the next domino is to fall now that we know that Andlauer is the preferred bidder?
I think it's probably the hockey operations questions. And I think mostly because of the timing of this, because we are basically, are we 14? No, today's the 13th, right? So 15 days away from the draft. 15 days away from the draft. You better have your management team in place, or at least a semblance of it, or be allowed to have two firm hands on the wheel. So that, to me, that's the next, the dominoes that we're going to find out what's going to happen with Pierre Dorion and DJ Smith. Do they stay and get insulated? Do they get removed? Like, there's a lot of moving parts here, but I would suspect that's the next thing that we see.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how that all kind of plays out. Ian, final question for me is this the most anticipated season in Ottawa Senators history coming up here? I mean, you've got a team that roster-wise is ready to compete for the playoffs. You've got brand new owners. I mean, it's hard to say with still some big off-season dominoes that need to fall here, but you've covered this team for a long time. How does this stack up with other seasons for you? And I think you might have answered this in a mailbag question, but just for the viewers here.
Yeah, I think so. And I think the way I answered that mailbag question was, I think the most anticipated season in franchise history was the one coming out of the 04-05 lockout. Okay, and there's a couple of reasons for that. One was Dominik Hasek was coming in, and they had a team that was at the height of their competitive cycle. Even though they had lost the previous year to the Leafs, or in 04 to the Leafs, there was still a feeling that they had this great foundation. And just before that season started, Hasek was there. They do Heatley for Hossa. They do Brian Murray in for Jacques Martin. And it was a feeling of new rules were coming in, rules that were going to favor an offensively minded team like Ottawa. And in 05-06, remember, they had Zdeno Chara. They had Marty Havlat. They had all of these pieces. And now, after 1 year of not playing hockey, I think that was the most anticipated year, because we went a whole year without NHL hockey. And then you're coming back with the Dominator and Danny Heatley plus Alfie and Chara and Spezza, like young Spezza. Like, it was go time. in 05-06. So I think that's the most anticipated year to date. But who knows? Maybe if they do some things this summer that make people feel really excited about this being the difference is that was a ready-made Stanley Cup contender.
Yeah.
This is a ready-made playoff contender.
Yep.
And that's a big difference.
Just imagine if they could have added Anze Kopitar to the mix, in the 05 draft. Wouldn't that have been just so cool?
Or Stahl too, right? Wasn't Mark Stahl the other guy?
Yep.
Yeah.
Brian Lee.
Brian Lee, great player anyway.
Hashtag Nodak Sens. Hey, hashtag Nodak Sens. The OG.
Yeah.
Brian Berchinski. Brian Berchinski?
Brandon.
Brandon.
Brandon Berchinski.
I don't know why that word just isn't in my vocabulary. Brandon, did you say?
Yeah, weird.
Marsh, you got anything else for Ian? We got to this is a busy guy. He's giving us an hour of his time. So nice.
You know what? I don't have a final question. I'll let him off the hook. But Ian, great to see you, and thanks for jumping on with us again.
Thank you for him giving you a shout out in the tweet.
Yeah, I mean, obviously,
huge.
It's you guys are the ones who are really in the trenches working on these things. I just have these nuggets that happen to fall into my lap from the streets. I'm merely a conduit. I'm not putting in any really hard investigative journalism work. So obviously our fan base and we really appreciate everything that you and everybody else is putting into this, actually, breaking this story for real. So
listen, you had, like I said, you had that early. I think it's great. I love, I always love, I say this in all sincerity, when there are a number of successful podcasts, when there are a number of writers, I see Steve Warren is pumping out stuff. That's good.
Yep.
That's good for the market. Let's get more people covering this team. More voices covering the team is a good thing. That's how I feel. I feel like that makes me have to be better, right? I'm like, damn, people are beating me on different things. That's good. Make it better. Make it tougher.
Our fan base is hungry to consume content, all different forms of content. It's a highly engaged
510 market. People watching this right now.
Yeah, but this is what you want. You want more people doing this, more competition, because there's an appetite for it, and it's great. So, hey, listen, I appreciate you guys having me on. And before I go, at the very beginning, you asked if there was ever a situation where a coach was a head coach of a team and then took a demotion with that same team.
Okay.
I believe Wayne Cashman did that with the Flyers. Late 90s, he was the head coach of the team.
Hell yeah.
They fired him. They demoted him, I think, and Roger Nielsen took over.
Oh.
Okay. And then Roger Nielsen unfortunately got sick, and then Wayne Cashman, I believe, took back over the team. I think that's how it worked. But that's the only one I can think of where a head coach was the head coach and then stayed behind the bench and took a step back as an assistant.
Okay, well, you bring that up, which obviously, Ian, the king of the callback.
Yeah, we knew you'd have that answer.
Yeah.
I've got a random Sens trivia that I've been waiting to give you.
Here we go.
Who was the first Senator to get 300 penalty minutes in a season? You know we like tough hockey here at Locked On Senators. Who was the first ever Ottawa Senators player to rack up 300 penalty minutes in a season?
Dennis Viel?
No, that's what I guessed too.
That'd be my guess.
So it's multiple choice. I just I clicked here. I'm not pretending like I had this prepared, and it was my fourth of the four.
So Denny Lambert would be the other guess.
Nope, he was another option. Mike Peluso in his only season with the Ottawa Senators.
There we go.
Still stands 118 penalty minutes and had 15 goals and 10 assists in his only season with Ottawa.
Did Mike Peluso have a 400 penalty minute season with Chicago at one point?
He looked so, not to brag, we did it once, but we took care of
444 or something. Peluso?
Well, we went to the Club Bell area in Ottawa at the rink. They have the tough guys wall. I thought that was so cool, where it's Mike Peluso's on it, Denny Vial,
McGrattan, Neil, and Karkner.
Matt Karkner, yeah.
Him giving Brian Boyle the 1-2 step was unbelievable in the playoffs back in 2012. And that's called delaying in the industry. Yes, Mike Peluso in 1991-92 with the Chicago Blackhawks, 408 penalty minutes.
I knew. I thought he had a 400 PIM season. So wow.
In 63 games.
Yeah.
Oh man. Well, hey, Ian, we cannot thank you enough. Everyone's already following you, but if you're not, everyone, Ian _Mendes. find them at The Athletic. Go support their work. The Athletic,
Absolutely.
great work. Unfortunate layoffs the other day were no brainer. Everyone would have canceled their subscription if it was you on the chopping block. There's no chance that happens. You're the man. We appreciate you. We'll be checking in with you throughout the summer. And Ian Mendes said it. Potentially the most anticipated season in Ottawa Senators history. We look forward to following it with you all the way, and we're really proud to be able to call you a friend of the show. So thanks for stopping by.
Thanks for having me. You guys know I'm a big fan of all three of you. And listen, when you come to Ottawa in July, if you're doing a Locked On get together or whatever, we'll get together. But if you're doing another thing, count me in. I'd love to say hi to some of your listeners and Sens fans. So yeah, thanks for having me again, guys.
Thanks,
The
Ian.
man, the myth, the legend. It's Ian Mendes from The Athletic as we say goodbye to Ian today. What an absolute beauty. Let's wrap this up with some final thoughts each, because guys, this shit doesn't happen all the time.
Oh, no.
The Ottawa Senators have been sold for the first time since 2003 when they were pulled out of bankruptcy by the skin of their teeth for $93 million with the arena. Did you not hear Ian Mendes say that the arena area itself is worth that much money? Like that to me is mind-blowing stuff right now. If you're the Senators fan base, you have to be completely ecstatic with how this is potentially turning out.